The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi guys, thank you for coming along today. I know you guys have got a busy schedule and probably a lot of work to do, so thank you for your time. Today on the webinar we're going to go through a bit more in depth of the Autodesk Vault engineering change order or ECO workflow. So that's the topic of today. My name is Ian Cross. I'm the product manager for data management here at CAD Group Australia. So let's get started. So if I just jump over to my next slide. Okay, so the welcome and agenda. So again, just a thank you for everyone for taking the time out to watch this. It is much appreciated. I know you guys are all busy. So the agenda for today is start off with what is an ECO, just so for those who aren't fully up to speed with what ECOs actually are or what ECO stands for. So that's one of the first things I'll touch on. Once I'm in Vault and showing you guys the product in motion, I'll be going through the common lifecycle procedure and some of the ECO options. Now, the lifecycle that I've got set up in my Vault is not the lifecycle options that you have to have. It's just what I have configured. It's just a common lifecycle procedure. Like I say, you can customize it as much as you want to match your own company settings. So there's no need whatsoever to follow or copy exactly my lifecycle settings. I'll then go through the ECO options about what routing to have, the naming schemes, restrictions and setups. We'll talk a little bit about the routing and the roles of the ECOs, the status and the states of the ECOs, and then I will go into a workflow. So I will take a file from start to finish all the way through a particular workflow. It should go on for about half an hour, and then if you've got any questions or anything at the end, obviously please ask. So start off with what is an ECO. So an ECO or engineering change order. So an engineering change order or just change order in general are components of the change management process that describes why, how, when changes are made to a design. So you can track effectively every single change that's happened to a file, from who did it, why they did it, when they did it, who approved it, who reviewed it, who put comments in there, so who made the changes. It's accountability and it's traceability from start to finish all the way through the change. So it also stops, say, maybe an inexperienced user from just diving straight into your files and making change without the correct authorization. But I will show how that is all set up once we get into Vault. Now, the ECO functionality is only available in Vault Professional. So Vault Basic and Vault Workgroup does not have this functionality. It is only available in Vault Professional. Okay. So next thing is the different roles and the routing of the ECO. So there's a heap of roles. Now these are different to the standard user roles that you get within Vault, such as the administrator or the document consumers or document managers, that sort of stuff. So you've got things such as the approver, who obviously can approve or reject a change order. So once it gets to the final approve stage, the approver or approvers can approve or reject the change order. The change administrator, whoever's been assigned the change administrator role can remove or add approvers. They can change the responsible engineer. They're also the one who closes off the change order, who actually gives the change order a kick into action. So once it gets created by the change requester, it's down to the change administrator to say, yes, let's actually do what we need to do with it. The change requester is the guy that initially starts up the change order. So that's the guy who clicks on the file and actually says, yes, let's actually go with the change order. The notification user is just somebody who will receive notifications when things are done. So the ECOs or the change orders automatically send out emails to the relevant people. So when it hits the work stage and the change order the change administrator needs to do something, it will send that person an email. When it needs to be approved, it will send the approver an email. So that's the notification user. They're just obviously notifications. The responsible engineer is the guy in charge of actually doing the change. So once the change administrator has said, yes, let's make the change, it then goes to the responsible engineer and they actually do the change and then submit it for review. And then finally the reviewer. So the reviewer can just simply add, view and reply to comments. They don't have the ability to approve, reject or change anything, just simply throw in their 2 cents worth. Okay. So they're the roles. Next slide along is the actual states. So obviously it starts off in the create state. So when the change requester requests the change, it opens it up, starts it, clicks save, adds in all the information, and then submits it to the open stage. That's when it comes to the change administrator. The change administrator then decides either to, I'll just bring my cursor over, either to submit for work, so to say yes, okay, let's do that, or they can cancel it and say nope, not going to do that, and they can cancel it. In more severe cases, they can just submit and force approval straight to the end if it needs to be done kind of right this second. So once the change administrator says, yeah, let's go for it, submits it to work, it then gets a notification gets sent to the the responsible engineer. The responsible engineer will then do the change, okay, do whatever has been requested. He will then submit it to review. At this point here, the reviewers and the approvers will get notifications. So the reviewers will just, like I said, put in their 2 cents worth, put their comments in, have a look at a few things, and then eventually the approvers will then approve it. Okay. Now you can set unanimous approval. So if you do have more than one approver, it takes 2 people. So once one's approved, it stays at the review stage, and when the second person approves, it then goes to the approved stage. If one of them rejects it, it will go to rejected, and then the change administrator decides whether to reopen it or to cancel it. And once it hits the approved stage, the change administrator then closes it off and says, we're done. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump into the workflow. So I'm about to log into Vault. Now I'm going to log in as a standard engineer, ed engineer. I'm not going to log in as an administrator or anything like that, just a standard engineer. So I'm logging into my Vault. So if I jump over to my Vault, let's have a quick look. ECO workflow. So these are the 2 files here that I'm going to put through the workflow. I'm just going to keep it nice and straightforward. So I'm just going to use the BMW wheel and the BMW wheel drawing. Now, it's just on a standard life cycle. So I've created a life cycle called webinar life cycle. So it goes work in progress, review, released. That's fine. So this guy has the ability to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you by taking this through the life cycle state. So it's on the webinar workflow. I change it to review. That's fine. This person, this ed engineer, has the ability to do that. And then I'm just going to change it again to released. As you can see, this guy has the ability to do that. But what ed engineer doesn't have the ability to do is take it out of the release stage. So now if, let's say for instance, the scenario is it's been released, it's out into the general public, and then a defect is spotted. So maybe the hole for the locking nuts to go into is too small or too big. Okay. So the report comes back, a change needs to be made. If I was, say, an inexperienced user and I was to come along and say, okay, let's just go and do this change. I changed the state. Let's knock it back to work in progress. Can't do it. There's nothing there. I can't change it out of the release stage. Okay. Now I will go into my settings just to show you what I've done. So in my behaviors and in my lifecycle settings, I have my webinar workflow just here. I go into the settings of here. So when I'm in my release state, the transition from release back to work in progress, I've got it set to controlled by change order is true. So it cannot go from released back to work in progress without a change order being raised. Okay, but it can also only iCross is allowed to do it. So iCross is the administrator in the Vault here, as it's my Vault. So only he can do it. So even when it does go into the change order, only the administrator can do that. So I will show you that when it all comes through into the action into the change order. But also when it goes from release to review, same thing applies. It has to be controlled by a change order, and it can only be done by iCross. Now, just while I'm sort of in the settings section, when you raise a change order, it automatically gets assigned a change order number, be it ECO 001 or whatever numbering scheme you want to call it. Now, if you're working in an environment with multiple disciplines, mechanical, electrical, architectural, plant, P&ID, process engineering, whatever it may be, you can set up a different naming scheme for different disciplines. So to identify quickly that it's an electrical ECO numbering scheme, you might put elec at the front, or mech for mechanical, or so on and so forth. So if I just jump back into my settings here, and I will just show you that on my change orders tab, my behaviors tab, I have my custom numbering schemes. So under define, I have change order. So I've created my own in here called as ECO workflow, and the naming scheme will just be ECO workflow and then 3 numbers, so 001, 002, 003, so on and so on. And you can add as many as you want in there, and then when you create the change order, you just simply drop down the menu and pick which one you want. But also talking about the disciplines of your change orders, be it mechanical, electrical, or architectural, or whatever environment you're working in, you want it to go through the right routing scheme. So if I'm in the electrical department and I create a change order on an electrical schematic, I don't want an architectural supervisor reviewing my drawings because he doesn't know what he's looking at, or I don't want a mechanical guy approving it because, again, he probably doesn't know what he's looking at. So you want a particular routing scheme for different disciplines. So in my settings again, under change orders here, I can define my routing lists. So again, I just have the one here, but I've got two. I've got the default one, and I've got my ECO demonstration that I've got here. And all I've done here is I've got Andy Approver to be the approver. The ed engineer is the change requester and the responsible engineer. So he's the guy that raised it and will do the work. iCross can do everything. He's the administrator here. Mike Manager, Rob Reviewer, and Simon Supervisor are just the guys who will review it. They have no other privileges. They can just simply have a look at it once it gets to the review stage and put in their 2 cents. Now you can create as many different routing schemes as you want. So I can create another one called mechanical, another one called electrical, another one called architectural, and so on and so forth. But what if, say, Andy Approver is on holiday and I need this approved? So Andy Approver he won't be able to approve it, so it can't get approved. But that's fine. Once you actually create the ECO, you get the option to pick and choose who you want, so you can remove people and tweak it just a little bit. So that's some of the settings with the ECO. So I've created my routing list. I've created my numbering scheme. It's at release, it's out in the public, and then suddenly we get a call from one of our distributors to say, okay, the locking nut gap is too tight, you need to modify it. So ed engineer's logged into Vault and he wants to raise the change order to give it to the boss to say we need to change this because we're having problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise my change order. So I select my files, and I'm going to say add this to a new change order. Okay. So it raises a new change order. It automatically picks the next available number. In here I can change my ECO numbering scheme, but I'm happy with the one that it's chose. So in here you would choose your mechanical, your electrical, your architectural, so on and so forth. Give it a title, be as descriptive as you possibly can in here, and the more information the better. More than likely, if you're not very descriptive and you don't give the right information, whoever's in charge is just going to deny the change order. So I'm just going to give the title of change locking nut dia on BMW wheel. And then in here you would give as much detailed description, cut and paste from a Word document. You can attach PDF and Word documents if you want. I'll show you that in just a sec. So in here, as I say, customer complained that they cannot access locking nut, it's too tight, let's say. Okay, so in the change order in here you would have as much information as you possibly can. If there has to be a particular due date, you can say, okay, it has to be due by a particular date. I'm just going to leave it as today because we're going to go through the whole process. On the records tab, there's the 2 files. As you can see, they're currently in the release state. I still can't from here change the state, okay, because although it is in the workflow process, this person does not have access to change the state, which is fine. So in here I could possibly add PDF documents or Excel documents, any material or documentation that's been sent from your distributor, say any complaint letters or anything like that, you can attach them in here just using the add button. As it goes through its ECO process, all the comments added by everybody will appear in here. So once I save this and submit it and put my comments in, we'll see all my comments appear down here. You can also add a comment at any time. In here, where I've got my Files tab, I can add a markup in here. Now, so depending on what you're doing, you may want to add a markup file. So somebody's redlined up a drawing, added it in, and you want to add it in here. Now I can do this on the fly here if I want, and all markups go into a particular markup folder which has been predetermined. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to update my visualization file. So what it's doing now is just generating an up-to-date DWF file, because then what I'm going to do is using the DWF design review add-in, I'm just going to do a red line markup to say exactly what needs to be changed. So when the administrator looks in and says, okay, what needs to be done, everything is in there. So what I'm going to do is just in here, I'm just going to add a little markup here. Say, change diet to 26 mil, customer complaint. Okay, now you can, it is design view, so you can do things like your revision scheme. So let's just add another one in here for the sake of it. Change view to shaded, please. Okay, so that's my notes added in there. And all I need to do is click save. So I click save, it automatically adds it to my markup files. It prefixes it with the name of the markup, who did it, and the name of the ECO. So I'm going to click save. You'll see that it adds it into here. Now I'm not going to add a comment to here, it's not necessary. But you can see that the DWF markup has been added in here. So anybody who views it can just jump in, look at the markup and see exactly what they need to be done. And that markup will always stay with the ECO, which always stays with the part file, so it can always be viewed by anybody at any time. On the routing tab, you can see that it chose the ECO demonstration one here, and it is also using the unanimous approval. So as I mentioned before, the unanimous approval is that if there's more than one approver, both approvers need to say yes before it is actually approved and closed off. So Andy approver is an approver, and also iCross there is an approver as well. So both of these guys need to approve it. Now, at the moment, edit's grayed out, but that's fine. Once I click save, edit will come to life. Just once I click save, it locks in the ECO demonstration routing list, and then I can actually edit it. And on the status tab, that just tells you what status it's currently at. So once I click save, okay, it saved it. And this little button here has also been highlighted. So I can now submit this ready for open. But before I do that, I'll show you the edit. So for instance, if such as Andy approver was on holiday, I could come in here and remove Andy, remove him, and say to Mike Manager, edit him and make him an approver. So you can tweak it on the fly, depending if someone's on holiday, maybe they're on leave, or they're just not on site, or they're too busy. You can pick and choose exactly who has the rights to approve it. Okay. So I'll just OK that. And I'm happy with this, so I'm going to submit this. So, yep, let's save the changes. Now, I'm submitting this to the open stage, and I'm going to say, hi Ian, please review this ECO as we are getting customer complaints. See markup. Okay. Now, as I sort of mentioned before, at every stage, Vault will send whoever needs to. It'll send them an email. If you need to do something in Vault, it will send you an email. Okay. So I'm going to add this comment to the email. On the email tab, this is the email that it will send them. We'll see it once the email pops up in just a sec. So at the moment, it's going to go to the change order because it's going to go to the open stage where the change order administrator needs to say either yes, let's go ahead with it, or no, let's reject it. So you can also add in additional recipients. So if you want to add this to somebody who's not in the change order list, you can just punch in their email address there. But I'm happy. I'm not going to do that, and I'm just going to click OK, and it sends that email off. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly log out, and I'm going to log in as iCross, who is the change administrator. I'm going to have to log in and out a few times for this. So I'm just going to log in as iCross. And in my change order list, you can see that in my work list, I now have this in my work list. Okay, so it tells me that's something I need to do. Also, if you're logged into Vault and something gets assigned to you, you'll get a little pop-up box down the bottom here that will tell you you've been involved in something, that something needs to happen. You need to do something. A change order has been assigned to you. Okay. Now that email will just come through in just a sec. It's just got to go through the server and send it off. So there it is. Let's just open this up. Go into here. So there is the email. So the following data management events have occurred. There's the email. So there's the change order number. That is a link that will open up Vault. So if I don't have Vault open, I can just click on that. It'll open it up. And these are the files that have been assigned. So I can click that and open up the IDW. I can click that and open up the IPT file. So whoever needs it will get the email if they have something to do. And there's the comment file there. Please review the ECO because we're getting customer complaints. That's fine. So I'm just going to minimize that. Come back to here. So I would receive that email as the change administrator. I would then log into Vault or click the link, come into here, find the one that I need to respond to, say view and respond. So now I'd come into here and I'd review all the documentation. Okay, so I'll not waste all your guide time or use times by going through all the documentation, but you would go through, you would open up the files, you would have a look. I would go to the files tab, I'd have a look at the DWF file, I'd have a look at the markups and say, okay, that needs to be changed and that needs to be changed. Okay, go to the comments tab. That's the submit to open by Ed. Ed said this, and I'd basically go through and review everything. Okay, so I'm pretty cool with that. Now along the top, I have a couple of options because I'm the change administrator. I can either cancel it and say no, useless. I can submit it to work, or I can submit and force approval. So I can either cancel it, submit to work, or I can submit and force approval straight to the end. Now I'm going to submit this to be work. So what I need to do is, because I'm the administrator, first of all, let's take these out of the release stage because I want the work to be done. Change it to work in progress. And then I'm going to submit this to be work. You can see that it also changed the revision of the file because I've changed it from release to work in progress, so it's bumped up the revision. Hi Ed. Yes, I agree. Please do the work. Yeah. Add that comment to the email. If you want to make it a bit more obvious, you can cut and paste the comment to the top. Most people read the first couple of lines and skip the top. So you can just add the comment at the top. Click OK. That'll send the email off to Ed to say, go do some work. Okay, so it's now at the work stage. You can see there it's now at the work stage. So it'll go off to Ed. Ed will get an email. So let's just log back in as Ed engineer. So Ed will get his email to say, do some work. I say the email will come through in just a sec. It's just kind of going off to the server and getting generated and sent. But Ed will receive his email. He will then log in to do the work. So again, Ed would come into here, say view and respond. He would come in, he would look at the comments and say, okay, what did Ian say? Yes, I agree to do the work. What did this submit to open? Okay, he says this. I can go to the files. There's the email just coming through. I go to my ECO, I can check everything out, and again, Ed would review the documentation. Now, you can add as more documentation in. I was pretty vague, just saying, please change this, please change that. You could be a bit more, informative with the comments. But so what Ed would do now is do the change. Okay, so what I'm going to do is straight from here, check out these files to make a change, and I'm going to open up the BMW wheel. Okay. So here's my wheel, and we need to change the size of the locking nut. Okay, so I'm just going to jump into here and change the size of the locking nut. Let's change it to 24 mil. Okay, click Finish the sketch. That's just going to do a bit of an update. Yeah, so basically Ed will now check it out, make the changes to the file. I've now got to then go back and update the IDW as well. So I'll just open up the IDW. So the IDW will then do its bit update, which is great. Okay. As we all know, Inventor, the IDW updates automatically. So I'll just save him and close. Save him. Come to my Vault tab. I've made all my changes. And then let's just put a dimension on it here. There you go. So it's now changed to 24. Click Save. And then I will check this file back into Vault. So check in. It's going to check in both the files. Changes made as per ECO 009. Close files and delete working copies. I click OK. And it puts the files back into Vault, which is great. Just do a bit of a refresh. They're now checked in. And then I'm now going to submit these files I've done my work. I now submit these. I need these to be reviewed. Okay. So I'm going to say submit. Actually, before I click submit, well, actually no, I will click submit first and I'll show you the error. I click submit and it will not let me submit to review. Reason being is when it's in the change order, I cannot submit from work to review if it's still in the work in progress state. I have to change it to the review state before I can change it. Okay, which is one of the settings I've got set up. So if I just jump back into my records, change the state, because these now need to be reviewed. Okay, I now submit to review. Made the changes. Made the changes. Please review and approve if needed. Okay. Add those comments to the email. I click OK, and you can see that all of the information is now gone from here. All I can do is simply just add a comment, because Ed the engineer is not a reviewer, he's not an approver. It's just down to the reviewers and approvers now. Okay, all I can do is add a comment in there. So now, again, an email gets sent off to whoever needs to make the reviewing and the approving. So let's now log in as the approver. And the approver. And the approver. So it comes into here. Andy's now got a list thing in there for something to approve. And again, his email will come through in just a second. But Andy comes into here. He then will review the documentation. Let's just quickly do an update so I can see the changes that he's made. So again, it's just got to go through and republish the DWF file. So the DWF file are just sort of visualization files that go into Vault. So you don't always have to open up the file to actually see what's going on. You can just look at the visualization file. And there's the email come through. So you can see the 24 mil has been changed. I'm all happy with that. Again, you can go through, look at the comments, check all the records, open up and look at the files and be as thorough as you possibly want. I'm not going through all that detail because, I don't really want to waste your time just opening up files and closing them again. But Andy will now approve the file. He can either approve or reject and say, yeah, I agree. Well done, Ed. Good work. Okay, so he adds that comment and he approves it. Okay, but if I look at the status tab now, it's still in the review stage, even though he approved it. Reason being is because it needs unanimous approval. So it now also needs I cross the other approver to approve it. Okay, so if I just quickly jump out and log in as I cross. So again, it's still in my work list in here, waiting to be reviewed. So again, I will get an email. It'll ping me in just a second to remind me I've got an email. You don't always have to open it up. If you know, you can just go to respond there and approve or review the comments or whatever. I like to always go in there. It's a bit more thorough. You can go in, you can see all the files and all the different comments all nicely laid out in this dialog box. So I'll have a look at Andy's comments. Yes, I agree. Well done. Ed made the changes. Yep. Obviously, I know the comments made there. I could come in here, have a quick look at this. Okay, yeah, I can see that he's made the changes. As you can see, it didn't have to regenerate the DWF file there because it's already been generated in Vault. I can add any comments, decline it, or whatever I need to. But I'm happy. The changes have been made. It all looks good. So I am going to approve. Okay, so yeah, There's the email coming through. I agree with Andy. Well done, Ed. Approved. Okay. Add that comment. Click OK. You don't always have to add a comment in there, but it's always nice to do that. But every single comment is always tracked. It's got somebody's name next to it, the date next to it, when they did it, in what state it was, who approved it, what they said, what they did, all the records. Every time you check out a file and check in a file, all the history is recorded. So it's got that accountability and that traceability in there. Now all I can do now is just close off the change order. I am the change administrator. I cross as the change administrator, so now I close it. But this change order will always be locked to that file. So regardless of that file, what happens to it now, it goes out, and whether it has another fault or it lives the rest of its life being perfect, that change order is always there. So at any point in time, we can always go back and find out what happened to that part and who did it, who said what. Even if that person leaves the company, it's still there with their name, their stamp, their date, the text, the comments that they put in there. Everything's always tracked. So I can close this change order off and say, this is now finished, close, and put my name against it, and close. Okay, it is now closed off. It is now locked. So if I jump back to my Project Explorer and I go and find those files, oh, I forgot to change those back to released in that last one. So let's just change that state to released. Because I'm the administrator, I can do that. But when you change it from the review to the release state, you can change it then. It can be done after, it can be done before. So it's now being released. And if I select any of these files and look at the change order tab down the bottom, I can see all of the history of that file, what change orders it's been applied to. So I can see everything that's been going on, regardless of where the file is in its life cycle. I can see exactly what's going on with that. So, okay. So that's the change order workflow, basically from the start to finish. The main benefit of the change order is the accountability and the traceability. You don't have somebody that's going in there making a change without it being approved. Some people have them as blue slips or green slips, or particular bits of paper you hand from desk to desk. I need to make a change here, boss. Will you sign that for me? This way, it's tracked, it's logged in Vault, it's electronically done. There's no paperwork. It can't be, oh, well, I never did that. That's not my signature. It's logged against your username. It was your password that was logged in with. There's no. It's all the accountability is there. Okay. So just to jump back to here, just to say what we've talked about is what is an ECO. So we went through that what ECO actually stands for, what it means, the common lifecycle procedure, or common lifecycle procedures, that should say, the different routing and the roles, the statuses and the statuses, and then we've went through the workflow, so from start to finish. Okay. So again, thank you guys for coming along. That is the ECO workflow from start to finish. If you do have any questions or anything, please contact our group either via the website or just drop us an email. Be more than happy to hear from you. If you want a demonstration of Vault, the full Vault package given to you, again, please get in touch. We'll be more than happy to come out or do a live demonstration with you guys to show you what happens. So again, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure, and see you later.